Hello. So I just put out a song I've been working on for the past month called Bork, and I thought it would be fun to do a little breakdown of the project. I use Bitwig Studio to make it, so if you're trying to learn Bitwig Studio, maybe you can get something out of this. Um, I'm gonna go through each section of the song, and I'm gonna go through each instrument, and we'll just look at what the device chain looks like, and we'll look at the MIDI, talk through a little bit what I was thinking, and then at the end of the video, I would like to talk a bit about just my workflow for this project. One of my goals for it was to have a more effective workflow than what I'm used to, where I just do a bunch of random stuff and never get anything done. So I'll add timestamps so that you can skip around to whatever you find useful. And if you want to listen to the track in full, there will be links in the description. So let's get started. The idea for this track was basically just a repeating drum loop with a bunch of different stuff happening over top of it. So every couple bars, it would just switch to something new, but the drum loop would stay the same. It was named by my dog while I was sitting on the couch, kind of imagining this in my head. He started barking at something outside, so that became the name of the song. I'm going to start off at the very beginning here. We have this little thing called bleep bloop. This is how the song starts. Yeah, and that's all it does. You can see the MIDI is not very complicated. And this is just a preset that I found scrolling through this plugin called Surge. Um, I'd like to go into the sound design, but I've never really looked at it. I just scrolled through and picked it. So, yeah. Um, the other thing in this little effects group is called Angry Circuit, and this is actually not the original use of this. That'll be in the next section, but again, very basic. So the second part I added later because I found this a little bit repetitive. This whole song's pretty repetitive. I was trying to make it a little more repetitive than usual, and I think I succeeded there. Maybe it's a little bit too much, but I don't mind where it turned out. So this is actually a grid patch. Probably the only one in here. It really doesn't do a whole lot. I don't know if I even needed the grid, but I used this wave folder and Chevy Chev, I don't even know how to say that, distortion, to get this sound. Yeah, probably could have made this in something less complicated than the grid, but that's where I made it, and I wasn't going to spend more time on it because it was, done. So, and the last part of this little intro is this synth bass. This is another preset that I found scrolling through Surge. Not everything in this project is a preset. Some of these I made myself, and I'll talk through the process for those. But preset diving can be really fun when you just want to get stuff done and make some cool sounds. I do have a pretty aggressive EQ on this. So I didn't think it was bassy enough to be my main bass. It's got a nice 5 dB boost on the bass, and then I took down the mids just to not conflict with the guitars, and I cut off some of the high end because I have a lot of very buzzy synths in this track. So I just wanted to make sure that not the more important, but the more prominent synths got to show off their buzziness, and the bass didn't, overrule them. So here's the whole intro. Ooh, cliffhanger. Okay. So there's a couple things I didn't talk about in there. I'm going to talk about them more in the next section, but there's a basic guitar part and the beginning of the drums. Very, I don't know. The drums are very simple. Yeah. So this next section I call the chorus. It repeats a couple times. I don't know if that's really how this is structured, but yeah. So I'm gonna play the drum. Actually, let me play the whole thing since I cliffhanger. Okay, maybe not the whole thing, just a little bit. So let's go through the drums a bit. This is kind of the main idea behind the song. It's not a fancy drum beat or anything. So I have, and that just repeats a bunch. This is a Bitwig preset. I don't know how to say that. Erupt Kit 5. It's in there. It's a little bit, it's cool, but it's a little bit sparse for me. So I added several other layers of drums. One thing I did on the kick, I did add some compression. It was a very ringy kick. So I just want to cut down on that a little bit while still keeping it kind of punchy. It is a stronger kick. The other drums sound like this. Really just reinforcing the kick and the snare. This is just Bitwig drums from Complete, Native Instruments Complete. I love Bitwig drums because they sound nasty. So I don't know. I always like it when my drums have that little bit of bite to them, and I always get that from here. So I think it's a good way to emphasize those parts that you want to stand out a little bit more. And then the interesting part, in my opinion, I have these guitars. You can see I have a rhythm and a lead. I will go over the lead first. It's basically the same for the whole project. And you can see here that there's two of them. There's a MIDI one and an audio one. So all of the guitars in this track are actually a plugin called Shreddage Hydra. I'm very happy with this plugin. I have a guitar and I can play it just barely. I really don't enjoy it. I mean, I enjoy playing it, but I don't enjoy recording it because I'm not that good and I have to do a lot of takes and do a lot of comping. And, you know, it really just gets me out of the process. So I got this plugin, which I really like. So not only does it look cool, but you know, it helps me helps me get my guitars down. It's not super straightforward. So I think what's cool about it is it's very reactive to your MIDI. You can configure it to work however you want. I'm using the default config here. So basically the lower third of the velocity, it's going to give you palm mutes. And then as the velocity goes up, it'll kind of, you know, remove that mute a little bit. If you go all the way to the top, it'll do a pinch harmonic. And then you can see at the bottom, we have this like thing in the -1 octave on C. Way down there. So what those do is it kind of tells Shreddage what kind of articulation you want on your guitars. And so I'm not going to go through it here, but basically you can set it to play power chords. You can set it to do tremolos. You could set it to do palm mutes all the time, harmonics, all kinds of stuff. So, you know, if you really want MIDI guitars, I think this is great because you have to put a lot of time in to kind of deal with all these velocities and make everything configured the way you want. But if you put the time in, then you get some pretty realistic sounding guitars. So, not bad. If you listen closely, you might be able to tell that it's fake, but if you listen to it in a mix, I don't think you'd be able to tell at all. So Shreddage has these other cool features where it's it almost feels non-deterministic, where it basically is simulating a person playing a guitar. So it has things like hand size, and it will choose frets based on the size of your hand and what's the most efficient to play. And the downside here is that sometimes uh, you don't always get the same thing when you play MIDI. Like if you start in the middle and you don't have this little trigger here, it'll have a different articulation and stuff. It's all very annoying, and it also takes a really long time to load. So what I do is when I'm happy with the MIDI, I just bounce in place. So like hold Alt and just drag it down to an audio track, let it render, and then I disable the MIDI track, and I just have the audio, which sounds, exactly the same. Okay. So what I do with this, just because the way bouncing works and everything, is I have my two guitar tracks. So you can see there's no effects on the actual tracks here. What I do is I just put them in the group so that they apply the same way to both. Using Archetype Nolly for this as the amp sim. Basically just use presets for this too. And I always put them in stereo because Shreddage will actually output 2 or 4 guitars. You could tell it to do multiple guitars and it'll do the multi-tracking for you, so you don't have to find a way to double track your guitars or anything like that. I really like Archetype Nolly. I also have Archetype Petrucci, but I feel like it's really fun to play with, but it's not as useful in the songs that I make. I can't ever really fit it into my mix very well, whereas with Nolly it feels like a very usable plugin. I don't know, it just sounds like normal amps. The Petrucci ones just sound fancy. They're both great plugins, but I tend to prefer Nolly in my actual songs. So I did put an EQ on this as well. Can barely tell, it's just cutting out the low end. Don't really need it from here. All right, and then we also have a rhythm guitar. You heard it at the very beginning. So these sorts of more repetitive type things are, these are when you can hear that the guitars are fake, I think. But once again, you might be able to tell there. Can you tell there? Probably not. So this is the rhythm that plays during the chorus. It's very, very simple. You can see the MIDI is very simple. I added that second part because it just needed to be a little bit different than the first part. I kept trying to add a new layer to this part of the chorus, and I just couldn't find anything that fit. I kind of like how not busy the chorus is. And also, I think one of my favorite parts about the song is the transitions from the chorus into these other parts where I do other stuff. And I think those were always hurt when I added new elements. So I just decided to leave it how it is, even if it's a little bit repetitive. And then finally I added this little bit of flair around the chorus. So fancy. It is actually a bit longer. But that other part never really felt necessary. And then there's this other thing that goes like this. That is from the built-in samples that come with Bitwig. That's just some guy making a noise with his air conditioner. So, yeah. Sounds kind of cool. Okay, I'm gonna play through the beginning of this again. Cliffhanger again. Okay, so you can hear how all the elements kind of work together in there. Yeah, I like how simple it is. All right, so this is one of my favorite parts. I'm just gonna play it from here. Um, yeah, I mean, I was just messing around on my keyboard and I played that and I really liked it. So the synth is a plugin called Falcon. Um, I'm a medium fan of Falcon. I really love the way it sounds and all the stuff that it comes with. I'm not a huge fan of making stuff in it. It's a little bit cumbersome, um, but it sounds awesome, so I don't care. Uh, um, yeah, so this is a very basic patch. It's mostly effects. Let's. I'm just gonna play it without the effects. All right, so you can see the oscillator. It's really just sine wave. Does it have unison? No, it doesn't even have unison. Um, oops. Yeah, this is what I don't like about Falcon. Just get to your effects. All right, so first thing I did was add a tiny bit of distortion. And then one of my favorite things in Falcon, this Chorus effect. It's a very nice chorus effect. I'm probably going to buy it standalone because I use it for basically every patch in Falcon. I love it because it doesn't have that phasiness to it unless you want it to. It just sounds bigger. And then another one that I love that I might buy separately, Spark Verb. And then this maximizer at the end. Presumably that's just a limiter. Makes it louder. Louder's gooder. The other part in here is the rhythm guitar. So the beginning is just palm mutes. And then it does this other thing. Yeah, so it's really just, you know, the synth and the guitar talking to each other. I added these dumb little deet 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 things to the guitar part. Just, I don't know. I don't want the synth to feel lonely, like it just has to go sit in a corner while the guitar does its thing. So it adds a little bit more rhythm to that part. Yeah. Yeah. And then the bass for this, same old bass, but now it's thicker. Very complicated. Yep. And then for the chuggy part, it just follows the guitar. Yeah, I had it doing its own thing for a while, but it really took away from those chugs on the guitar, so we wouldn't want to do that. And then one more thing, I bring in yet another drum kit here. This is Modern Massive from Get Good Drums. So these are just realistic drums to go along with my electronic drums and mushy drums, or whatever. Maybe not mushy, but growly drums. I don't know what I call Butch Vig. It's just good. I added some stuff to these. So I have a compressor, saturator, and EQ. Compressor's just making it louder, as you might expect. Yeah, saturator's just making it growl a bit, and then the EQ. So this is a contact plugin, and you can route each of the individual drum microphones to different channels coming out of contact, but I didn't feel like doing it. I do it for most of my songs, but by the time I got to this point, it wasn't done, and all this drum stuff was done already. I didn't feel like doing it, so I just added an EQ to turn down the cymbals a bit. Yeah, I'm lazy, but you know, gotta get stuff done. This is the full 3 layers of drums. I think, yeah, I like the way it sounds. It has that little bit of electronic feel plus the realistic feel on top of it. All right, the next part is another chorus. It's exactly like the first chorus, except it has the extra layer of drums now. So we're not going to go over it again. I will let the chorus lead into the next part because I do really like these transitions. Oh yeah, that's my other favorite part. All right, so I got this part that I call the bridge now. It starts off leading out of the chorus with another little chuggy bit. It's another thing that I just played on my keyboard while I was messing around. I just kind of had the drum beat on loop, and I was scrolling through presets in Analog Lab, and I found this one, which I really liked. And then I played this little melody, which I also really liked. Oh, it didn't have the cool part. Yep. Oops. And that repeats a whole bunch. This is, once again, this is just another preset. I know very little about it other than I like it. It's an Analog Lab. It's called Fusion Lead. Go find it if you have Analog Lab. All right. So the next section, I have a new bass. Doesn't do a whole lot. So this bass is another preset in Analog Lab called Super Fat Bass. It sounds super fat. As you can see, there's 2 layers here. There's a low layer and a not so low layer. They're both the same preset. The not so low layer just transposes the notes up 1 octave. So I was listening to this on some other speakers. I only had the low layer originally, and I couldn't hear anything. So I decided to add some notes an octave up just so that, you know, everybody could hear the bass. There's a lot of ways you could do this, and I did this several different times on several different tracks in several different ways in this project, and I'll show that to you. In this case, I just did 2 layers and I transposed one of them so that there's only 1 MIDI track. Yeah, it's only 1 MIDI track, but there's 2 layers of bass, so lots of benefit with little effort. Let's go to the next part. So there's a lot going on here. This is also really cheesy, which I love. So we'll just start with this new drum thing. There's a reverby drum thing going on there. This is just one of the modern and massive snares run through a reverb and then reversed and then put together with the same thing happening forward. Actually sounds really dumb because I changed the drum beat that went on behind it and they don't fit together anymore, but you know, this is already on Spotify, so it's too late to fix it. Oh well, stuff happens. All right, so aside from that drum thing, we've got a whole bunch of synth things going on here, more than it looks like even. So underneath everything, we have this little thing called pluck bass. Yeah, I don't know why I love stuff like that, but I do. This is another Falcon patch. Let me go turn off the effects. As you can see, it's just Thorus and Sparkverb again, my favorite things. So this is what's called an analog stack. It's like an analog oscillator, but there's 8 of them. I used 3. One the normal pitch, one at an octave down, and a square wave at the octave down. So the other 2 are saw waves. Third one's a square wave. I believe. I thought they were panned, but I guess they're not. Yeah, so just some waves. And then the effects. Thorus, so subtle, but it makes a huge difference. I love it. And a really short Sparkverb. Yeah, that's the pluck bass. Next up we have this. I actually played this on my Moog Matriarch. Well, I played it and then I recorded the MIDI and then I had the MIDI play through because I'm not consistent enough. I'm not very good at, playing things in general. I'm getting better, but I'm not there yet. I made this patch on there that I really like. It's just like a boring saw sound with the first 3 oscillators. The 4th oscillator is a triangle wave. It's up 2 or 3 octaves, and it goes to the LFO, so it always wiggles. You can hear it. There's a very subtle effect there that you almost can't even tell with notes playing this quickly, where the speed of the LFO decreases with with an envelope. So it slows down over time, but if you push aftertouch, it speeds back up again, kind of like revving a motorcycle. So it's really fun to play. You can't really hear any of that here just because it's playing boring notes, and I don't think there's even any aftertouch. It's just one more layer to go under this, though. It's actually playing the same MIDI as this. So this is fancily named my Buzzy lead. Couple things going on there too. Once again, very simple MIDI. It's very repetitive. This is one of the things that I probably should have spent some more time on, but I like having stuff that's done. So, all right, so I have 2 layers here actually. The first one is another surge. I don't know if it's a preset or not. Let's find out. Sure is. I think it's the same. It's the same preset as the other one, but I tweaked some things. It's got a little resonant sweep at the end that the other one didn't have. Yeah, so I have this tau chorus here, which I guess is just like a Juno chorus. And then I have a little EQ. Just cutting out the bass and boosting the buzz, because I like me some buzzy synths. The other one I have is the little Pigments patch. So this is just supposed to be a little highlight on top of kind of that main surge synth. And I liked the wiggle from the Matriarch, so I brought it over here too. So you can see it's just the first 2 oscillators here doing basic synthy stuff. If you look at the fine tune here, you can see the LFO going wild on it all the time. Real fun. There's a little bit of unison. And then I have a stereo pan, and that's it. You can see it goes left and right if you're listening to this in stereo. Together, they sound like this. And with the Matriarch. Oops. Oh yeah. And then the whole thing. this last part is basically a build-up, kind of getting back into the sound we had earlier with the guitars and everything. I will just play the whole thing. I don't want you to hear that next part yet. Yeah, so what we added here is this thing that's called stringy. As you can see, I'm very good at naming things. This is one of those things that I just put some stuff in MIDI. I never played this. I don't know. I did this first little build up in the MIDI, and then it kind of comes back in and repeats around here, like back to the low note. There's probably a word for that. I don't know what it is. Yeah, so this is a really thick sound. So I took out the matriarch here, and I actually, if you look at the automation, if I can find it, if you look at the automation, I actually take down the pigments layer in this buzzy lead as well. So let's look at the patch for this. Stringy, oh, there's two. I didn't know there was two. Okay, so the first one is Vital. Vital's a great free synth that everyone should have because it's free. Very simple patch again. No effects, no anything. Yeah, and then the other one is another Falcon. Let's get it open. This one sounds cooler because it's Falcon. But it's not a whole lot, is it? Just sine wave with some unison and a bunch of notes playing. And of course, my good friend Thoris. I love Thoris. Both of these layers have another one of those towel choruses. Just a chorus all over. Probably don't even need it. And then, you know, basic fake bandpass filter here. Just cut off the high end and the low end. Yeah, it's very buzzy or hissy, I guess. It's very hissy and it has a lot of bass that it doesn't need because there's a lot of other things going on. So. And there's the Bork, the most important part of the whole song. Actually sounds really bad, I'll be honest. When you hear it by itself. I spent a lot of time trying to find fun ways to deal with this. I just got bored, so I stopped. So there's a couple layers. There's like 10 layers for this. We have the Bork instrument, which is the MIDI track. And that's the original Bork with some reverb. And two of these weird granular Borks. Just using the sampler in Bitwig. It's got a couple granular features. So one of them goes slow, this first one. And this other one goes backwards. And all together. And then we have a whole bunch of samples. This is my it's my Bork chorus. So I had a lot of Borking samples on my phone, so I just put them all together. That's my other dog. So, as you can hear, they're all very different. And so when you play them all together, they sound crappy. But people like that part. I guess in context, it's not so bad. Isn't that how things always work out? All right. So we go into like, I don't know. It's not a breakdown. If you listen to, like metalcore, they got the breakdown part, but it kind of serves the same purpose. Where we come back into the more rocky music from the earlier part of the song. This time it's a little chuggier. So I'll just play it. Yep. So there's one new element here. It's this rhythmic synth. All it does. You can see the velocities are really weird. I told you that I did layering in a lot of different ways. So here's like the third way that I did it. I have another pigments patch, and it has some oscillators with unison, stereo pan, little phaser, pretty sizable distortion. The thing that makes it different for the layers is that I modulate the output volume with the velocity here. You can see it goes in this range. So at minimum velocity, the volume is here, and at maximum velocity, the volume is here. So it looks kind of funny in the MIDI because it goes from absolute minimum to absolute maximum, but the actual effect is pretty subtle in the synth. I wonder if I just turn this off. Yeah, probably too much work to break those apart. But the other new thing in this section is just another guitar riff. Corny again. You can see in the MIDI here, I actually changed the articulation at the end. So it starts off on power chords. It goes down to regular notes, but with maximum velocity for pinch harmonic up there. And then back to power chords for this next note. So. So again, I mean, the pinch harmonics kind of sound, kind of tell that it's not someone really playing the guitar, but overall it is really convincing in the mix. The bass here. So we have a steady bass line down here, and then we have these little stuttery parts just to reinforce the chugs on the guitar. Always got to reinforce those chugs, right? And then we have a second part. Close the rhythm. So this is just a different articulation in shreddage for the tremolo. And that one you can tell it's fake. But also it sounds better than if you were to just kind of put a whole bunch of notes in a row on a fake guitar, because it's actually a recording of somebody doing tremolo picking on a guitar. Yep, I mean that's that whole part. We go back into another chorus at the end. Don't need to play that again, but it does. So the second half doesn't have that same rhythm guitar that the first part of the song has. It kind of just goes into more chugs because, we're feeling aggressive at the end. We just had that little fake breakdown and everything. Fun fact, this is how the song was originally, with the chugs in the second half, transitioning from that other rhythm pattern. It does sound pretty cool, in my opinion, but what I liked more than that was this transition. Kind of the chugs with that soft synth. Something about it is very satisfying to me, and you don't get that effect if you go from chugs to chugs. So I had to put something else there, to make the parts that I like sound the best, and the other parts can suffer a bit. Ironically, it's the chorus that had to suffer a bit, but it's not a real chorus. It's really like a break between every section in the song, so no big deal. So that's the whole track. It's not too complicated, I don't think. There are a lot of tracks in here. It's definitely the most tracks I've ever had in a song. My other songs are a lot simpler. But that's what I was going for here. I really wanted a lot of synths and different instruments and drum layers and sound effects and all kinds of weird stuff. So I think it turned out pretty good. I'm very happy with the end result. I like listening to it. It makes me dance in my chair, and that's all that really matters. To me, at least. I have a job, so it doesn't have to pay the bills. So I can make whatever weird stuff I want that only I like, and it's nice. The last thing I wanted to talk about in this video is just my general workflow. This isn't the first time I've started in session view, but it's the first finished track I have that started in session view. I think it's a really nice way. I guess it's called clip view in Bitwig. Oh no, don't come after me. I think it's a quick way to kind of get your ideas out, and if you don't have a fully formed idea of what you want the song to be, but you have parts in mind, you can bring the parts into clips here. You can audition them with each other. You can try different drum beats with different parts, like playing the scene. Yeah, that thumpy part wasn't in the song, but I tried it out because got to try lots of stuff. That's how you find what sounds good, what you really like, and then when you have stuff that you like, what I do is I put them into scenes. So this looks a lot more nicely organized right now, because normally I just have a whole bunch of different clips and I play with them randomly, and then when I find stuff I like, I will put them into scenes and then kind of audition that entire section of the song. Like I make a little chorus in clip view, and I'll play the chorus in here, and I'll do transitions to the verse and the chorus, just to see if I like it, if there's things I want to tweak. At some point I start to get annoyed that the song isn't linear, so I pop back into the arrangement view. I open up my little side thing here, and I just drag my scenes in. I'm not going to drop it in there because it'll overwrite my stuff. But yeah, you can just drag the whole scene in and then kind of build your song out of the scenes. And so that's what I did here. I took the chorus. I just put the chorus in. I had a little verse. There wasn't much to it. None of this existed at the time. So I just dragged chorus, verse, chorus, some little, I think it was just the drum beat in the middle, and then chorus at the end. That's how it started. And then now that I'm here, I can kind of think of it in that more linear way, where there are transitions and there's kind of themes and all that fun stuff that I like. It's a lot harder to do kind of that early design and experimentation work in arrangement view for me, because there's just a lot of overhead involved in trying stuff out, moving things around and all that. One nice thing, once you transition into arrangement view, is that you can use this little clip area as kind of storage for ideas that you come up with after the clip phase. So I don't really use it in the same way where I'm playing things all together anymore, which is why I can't just play scenes for you now. But if I have ideas that I want to try out and they don't work, but I don't want to throw them away just yet, I'll just move them over to the clips, save them for later just in case. I have a habit of deleting things, and so this is kind of my way to save things instead of deleting them, because there's always that time when you delete something and then you need something later and you're like, oh, that thing I made earlier would have been really cool, and now you have to remake it because you deleted it. But I like to keep a nice clean workspace, so I like to have this kind of messy trash bin area over here once I'm in the arrangement view. It's um, important to have it organized before that. Something that's really nice about Bitwig too is it has this nice session view or clip view, like you might be used to in other DAWs, but then it has the side by side view, and it has that ability to drag the scenes that just kind of makes it really seamless. So I really enjoyed it for this process. I'm definitely going to do it again for probably every song I make in the future, just because it's a very effective workflow. My goal here was to finish this song during the month of September. I started it, with that first idea, I think sometime in late August. I just kind of recorded out that drum thing and a basic idea. None of the actual melodies or anything were in there. And then at the beginning of September, I said, all right, I'm going to turn this into a song. I'm going to finish it by the end of September. I finished it, I think, 2 days into October. It's good enough. It's out now. So really happy with that. So yeah, I hope you learned something from this. I don't know what. Maybe you learned something about how to make weird basic songs. Maybe you learned something about Bitwig. That'd probably be really useful, actually. Maybe I'll make more Bitwig videos because it's really cool. It's a really cool DAW. I like using it. It's got lots of fancy things. You got the grid and all that. Yeah. So once again, if you want to hear the track in full without my voice talking over it and stopping it, there should be links in the description. Oh man, how do I sign off? How do I sign off, Griffin? No, nothing. No Borks, no nothing. You got nothing for me? Okay.